right. Hey, indie game engine developers, how are you doing? I wanted to do this live stream because I've been developing the first game with the Untold Engine, and what I've been working on this past month was basically developing a sensor management system, and I want to share how I did that, how I implemented it, so you can get an idea, or how to do it, or even make it better. So let me actually show you right now. Let me go to the game and show you how it actually works. Well, looks at first. So here's the game, and you see here the enemies. There's one enemy right there, and then you're gonna see the other enemy right there. So what's gonna happen now is that as I approach them, they're going to detect my presence, and when they do that, they're going to wake up in this case and approach me. So let me get closer to this guy, and you're gonna see how he woke up. Now he's walking towards me. Now the behavior of this enemy is of a zombie, so he's very slow and weird motion. Now let me go around the other enemy, and you see how when he detected my presence, now he's coming towards me again. And if I go around, let me go around this guy. Here's the other enemy. Now I'm gonna get closer to him also, and you're gonna see how he will start waking, approaching me again. Now if I go around the whole game map, you're gonna see how the other enemies, they know where I am at, so they will look for me and try to shoot at me or anything. I disabled the whole shooting because there was a small glitch in the game, and it was crashing the whole game, and I didn't want it to crash while I was doing the live stream. All right, so that's how it looks. So now what I want to do is actually, I want to show you how I implemented that. All right, so let me go to my presentation here, and it goes like this, and start presenting. All right, so I'm going to talk about implementing a sensor management system in your game, right? So, so that you can have an idea, this is the map that I'm using in the game. Here are some of the enemies. There's an enemy right here. There's another one right here. Another one here. And I basically go around the whole map. All right. So I just have this slide so you can have an idea of how, the whole map basically. And this is a 2D representation of the map, which I'm going to be referring to, right? So basically these are my enemies right here, all of these guys, and this is me, this is the main player, all right? So there are several ways that you can implement this, all right? One is a really good way, the other one's not that good, you shouldn't do it. And let me go first, the first one. So you can do a pod-driven implementation, which means basically what you do is that every enemy will constantly be checking where the main player is at. Constantly be checking. You do like a polling, right? And every enemy in your game will be doing that. Obviously, that is not a good idea at all, because right now I only have 3 enemies. But if you have 50, 100 enemies, all of them will be doing the same thing, and it's not efficient at all. So what you can also do, which is also pod driven, is actually set up some sensors, and these white boxes here, there are sensors, and how it works is like these enemies are subscribers of the sensor in this location, and these enemies are the subscribers of the enemies in this location, and on and on. And what happens now that instead of the enemies, each enemy polling the position of the main player, the sensors in this case are going to be doing the whole polling, right? So the sensors are going to be polling the location of the player throughout the whole game. Now this is a little bit more efficient, but you shouldn't do it this way, because when it comes to sensor management system, from what I read, you want it to be event driven instead of pod driven. So event driven, what it means is that you want an event to happen that will send a message to a manager that will, basically say, oh, something happened in this room. Let me go and check out what's going on. And that's how I implemented it in the game. So I implemented an event-driven sensor management system. And how it works is, again, each of these enemies are subscribers to these sensors, right? These ones to these sensors. But now the sensors are subscribers to the sensor manager, right? And whenever there is an event that happened in one of the rooms, the sensor manager gets that message, and he will basically determine, to which sensor send the message, to which sensor route the message to, right? So let me go step by step, all right? So first of all, I emit the signal when the character is walking. Actually, during every keyframe, that's when I'm emitting a signal, right? And let me go. All right. So when I emit the signal, I'm also sending a message to the sensor manager through a message dispatcher, right? Now, once a sensor manager receives that message, what happens is that the sensor manager here will analyze that signal, and it will do two tests, right? The first test that it does is that if the signal passes the line of sight. For example, here in this, whenever the enemy is right, my character, my main player is in this location, it does a line of sight test between the source of the signal and this particular sensor. Now, in this case, that test will fail because these yellow lines, they represent the wall of the map, so there's no clear line of sight, right? So it's going to fail. So it's going to ignore it. The second test that it does is that it detects the intensity of the signal, right? How is the signal close enough to one of the particular sensors. So in this case, nothing will happen. The enemies are not going to be woken up at all. However, when the when the character goes to here, the line of sight test does passes. However, the intensity fails because the signal is not strong enough to reach one of the sensors, right? So let's say that the character now moves towards this way, and now the line of sight does pass, and the signal intensity is strong enough to be nearby one of the sensors. Well, at that moment, right, the sensor will send a message to this particular sensor, and the sensor will relay a message to its subscribers, right? And that's when they're going to wake up. Now, let me say this: the sensor manager here, he's the one that is doing all of the calculations. All right, the sensors here are not doing anything. They only relay the message. The sensor manager does the whole calculation of the, it will analyze the signal, it will test the intensity, it will test the line of sight, it will do all of that. The sensors are here, they do nothing. All right. So once the sensor manager informs this sensor that I'm highlighting here, this sensor will basically relay the message to its subscribers to basically wake up. And what happens at that moment is that the navigation system that I have in the engine is put into practice, and it will calculate using the navigation math, navigation mesh. It will calculate the path that the character, the enemy, should take to reach the main player. So here, basically, the navigation system calculated a path that the enemy should take to go towards the enemy. Now I know this is not the most efficient path, but that's what I have right now in the engine. That's the navigation mesh and how it is calculated. I know I have to improve it, but for now, it works. So once it knows the path, that's when the enemy starts walking towards the player. And also, depending how close it is to the main player, it will either start shooting or it will start basically punching the player. However, there is a bug in the game right now that whenever, now not always, but sometimes when the enemy is shooting, for some reason there is a problem with the particle system and the whole game crashes at that moment. It doesn't happen constantly, but I've seen it often enough that I didn't want to enable that here live because I didn't want it to crash. So that's how it works. But now there's one more problem, right? How do you keep track of the enemies that are roaming around the whole map following the main character? How do you keep track of their position, right? So let me give you a scenario. So let's say that at time 0 my main player is here and the enemy is right here. Obviously at this point the enemy is going to wake up and it will start following the main character, right? That's at time 0. Now at time 1, for example, and let me bring this up. At this moment the enemy is a subscriber of this sensor, all right? Keep that in mind. Then at time 1 the character now moves this way. The enemy walked this whole path. However, he is still a subscriber of this sensor, but it doesn't make sense because now it makes sense now that this enemy be a subscriber of this sensor, not of this one, right? And let's say at time 2 my main character is right here. Then this enemy has gone all around it, and instead of being a subscriber of this sensor, it is now a subscriber of this particular sensor. And that is a problem, right? Because we need to somehow be able to basically subscribe and unsubscribe an enemy to a particular sensor that is closest to the enemy. So one way that I figured it out, that how I implemented it, and now thinking about it, I think it was overkill how I did it, but it works, right? So I don't know. What I did was to use a linked list, right? And this is basically how I do it. At time 0, whenever the character approaches this sensor, I create a node in the linked list that will keep track of all the sensors that have been visited by the main character. So in this instance, I am close to sensor 1, so I create a node for that. And this is the enemy, obviously. Now, at time 1, my main character has also visited sensor 2. So I create another node for that, right? In the linked list. And then what I do is I update the sensors and subscribers and determine which sensor is the current enemy closest to. And depending on the proximity, I assign that enemy to the particular sensor. So I basically what I do, I unsubscribe the enemy from this sensor and make it a subscriber of this sensor using that linked list, right? Then at time 2, whenever the character is over here, which means that I have visited sensor 3 or being close to it, I create another node in the linked list, and then I update the whole sensors and subscribers again, right? And that will basically tell me, hey, this enemy now belongs to this sensor. And what I do here is that I in the linked list I have a maximum of 4 nodes only. Whenever I go over that, I just start deleting the nodes. But I keep a log of 4 nodes in the linked list that will basically keep a log of all of the sensors that I have that the main player have visited, and that's, it's working as of now. But that is I think a nice way to keep track of the enemies that are going to follow the enemy, the main character, and and how I can keep track of where they're at and how to subscribe and unsubscribe from a sensor. So that's how I'm doing the whole sensor management system in the game. I wanted to do this live stream basically to share with you, how you can do it also. It's not that hard, to be honest with you. But initially what I was doing, I was doing it this way, having a sensors and doing a pod driven, but I realized that that's not a proper way to do it. I needed like a sensor manager, to keep track of all the to do the whole analysis and the whole mathematics involved, and also to do the whole linked list and the tracking of the sensors and the subscribers. So let me know what you think about this. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, and let me know. So if you like, you can join my Discord channel and give me your ideas. Tell me, Harold, I think there's a better way that you can do it, and here it is. I would love to learn from you. So please join my Discord channel if you are developing your own game engine, if you have ideas, if you want to share how to do this better. And also subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm usually, right now I'm doing live streams every Sunday at 9 a.m. I think this is my 5th live stream or the 6th one. I'm not sure. I'm fairly new to live streaming basically on YouTube. I tried to do live streaming on Twitch like a year ago, but it didn't last too long because I was so new and I didn't know how to do none of this video stuff. And so I decided to, instead of doing live stream, I decided to upload videos so that way I can get used to it. But this year I decided to do live streams more often. I actually like it. So if you want to learn more about game engine development, I'm live every Sunday at 9 a.m. So feel free to subscribe and also join my Discord server. I'm going to provide the link below. So thank you guys for joining, and I'll see you next Sunday.